Holy Barack Obama, what on earth are we talking about? It's only happened once before, and if you're one of those people that's going to come running up to people all this week and going, "You see my bracket? I got all four teams in the Final Four. I'm still alive." You can take that piece of paper and shove it right up where the sun don't shine, because it didn't take a genius to come up with four number one seeds, although almost, one time in the past, 2008. The irony is we welcome Mike Jones into the program here. And Michael, how are you, my friend?
Good, and I was one of those idiots that had all four number one seeds in my bracket. So,
Well, but it only puts you in the idiot category if you start running around town going and beating your chest, going, "Hey, I got all four teams in the
yeah.
Final Four." But the significance of this whole thing, it happened in 2008, the only other time it's happened. And the irony is the destination for the Final Four, the exact same place,
Oh,
San Antonio,
interesting.
where you can find a Mexican restaurant that features a billboard somewhere as you would get out of the airport that says burritos the size of your head. That's what they're known
Mhm.
for. And
Mhm.
so you're thinking, well, geez, let me find a guy with the biggest head in the crowd here, and we'll go there and get a couple of burritos and start getting a little sample of the local flavor. But Final Four, no surprises there. The games will get into a little bit of
Mhm.
analysis of how these teams got there, but so far, and it seems far and away the most impressive, unchallenged at any juncture of most ball games has been Duke.
Yeah. Houston, okay, but I'm with you there. Duke does look like they are the team. I mean, we talked about this, you and I, about the fact that Alabama shot 51 threes and hit 25 of them against BYU,
Right.
and that may be fool's gold. And then you see Mark Sears only takes two shots in the first half because he can't get away and can't you get away from this Duke defense, and it's much easier when you sit there and don't want to dig the ball into the old post lane game like we used to play, and play a little inside out game, and you're staying on the perimeter. And Duke found their kryptonite because they basically defended the perimeter quite well.
Yep, they look great. I mean, sailed their way into the Final Four now, and they will be matched up against Houston. Smothering defense. I would have to. You talk about a dismantling defensive presence. That was Houston all throughout
Yeah.
the game. Completely throttled Tennessee. They
Mhm.
made Tennessee look like Virginia. They couldn't do anything, and
Mhm.
you're sitting there looking at 40 points and asking yourself how on earth is this possible? They end up with 50
Yeah.
in the game. Houston with just enough shooting from the outside to sort of balance out the idea that the old cliche, and I don't know that I really believe this 100%. You're an old school Bill Parcells football guy, so you probably will go to your epitaph may read, Mike Jones, defense wins championships.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you can rely. I mean, just ask Tom Izzo. You can't rely exclusively on defense to win a
Yeah.
title here, and it's not happening. And yet Houston just has enough little salt and pepper there on the outside to make you think
Yeah.
that they're in there with a shot in that ball game. How would you size that one up?
Well, Tennessee puts in an all-time low for its two seed and 15 points and a half. They had 8 points with 3 minutes to go. It was a good of the defensive game plan to defend the perimeter. They handcuffed Ziegler. I think every shot he went to the bag. I think he had four shots inside the paint. They were all blocked. Kelvin Sampson and Rick Barnes are close. They're old school coaches, and they both want to defend. And that total was 123. And I looked and smiled at it because I hadn't seen one that low in a tournament, with two teams this good and who can shoot and play offense. And then you see the total go to 127, and you're watching the first 3 minutes of the game, and you're saying, wait a minute, what are we watching here? It's 4-2 in the first time out, or
Yeah.
2 first time out. You're saying Tennessee can't get anything done. And then they kept jacking the threes up, which is what the game has gotten into. They were 1 for 15, I think, in the first half, and that's going to be the game when you continue to do that. It just Lanier shot three in a row, I think, from within 20 seconds on the shot clock, and some of them pretty good looks, but that was just deep. You could see that Houston got in Tennessee's head early and stayed there. That's what it looked like to me.
As much as Cooper Flag has talked about in the ultimate of hyperbole and high praise, and deservedly so. I mean, he seems to be a very complete basketball player, no doubt worthy in this year's crop of being the number one overall pick in the NBA. Don't know exactly how he'll be in the NBA, but I would imagine he'll be an effective player, even if he doesn't turn out to be one of the all-time greats. This is not going to be a Darko Milicic, who, by the way, I guess lasted 12 years in the NBA. So maybe as much of a stiff as he appeared to be at number 2 overall, ruining the career of Joe Dumars. He wasn't a complete waste of time, as we've seen some others that were chosen that highly. But Flagg doesn't even have to be a superstar on this Duke team. They seem to be, I mean, very well balanced with any number of choices of people that they can go to. So a lot to defend there. That'll be an interesting clash. Any immediate lean on the 4.5 points, Mike Jones, when you look at any,
I'm going to go defense and say that Houston finds a way to keep it close. Don't know if they win. But again, I will go to this point in this whole tournament that we talked about this early on. I said the top 3 seeds would all get through the first round. They did. To me, as a guy who looks for underdog better and understands what the sharp is looking for, if you're betting the favorites, you were 19-13 in round 1, 7-7-2 in round 2. In the Sweet 16, you were 5-3. In the Elite 8, you were 3-1. So the favorites are running the course of where this tournament would be. And now we have the favorites in there with number 1 seed. So if the 2 favorites cover and win, Florida and Duke, it won't surprise me. I just like to see defense. I'm an old school guy, as you just eloquently put it. And I think that I would think Houston might have something there. But this is another problem where they have interior guys who can play, where Tennessee didn't really have a threat on the interior. So if Francis gets it, and Roberts get in foul trouble, big fade to Duke, that would tell you. Then, they have to help down on the bigs. And then all of a sudden the kickouts there, and then you see what happens. Sharp basically covered the game in the second half himself with the threes for Houston. They're going to need to have that kind of performance again. They're a veteran team, they do it their way with getting veterans and transfer guys and coming in. Duke does it their way with freshmen, elite freshmen, 2 contrasts in styles. It's going to be a great game.
All right, the other matchup, and we'll get into a little bit about how it came about. But looking at them Gators and Auburn, Gators, they had that game against UConn where everybody was saying, oh, well, geez, you know what? Everybody needs to survive a scare. Early rounds, and that's usually a forebearer for good things to come, and the possibility of winning championships even opens up after a game like that. I don't know that you would have wanted to see another one like that, but certainly their win in the Elite 8 would suggest that they were more than vulnerable. I mean, it looks, for all intents and purposes, like they're beaten by Texas Tech. And then this guy Clayton starts doing that old Mike Jones move where you would get the ball under the basket and then run out to the three-point stripe. And while still with your back to the basket, hoist one up there as you were heading for the midcourt stripe. And boom, goes right in. Clutch performance, came back from the dead. Seemed impossible mathematically. You could say Texas Tech may have choked in this spot a little bit. It was probably more likely a little bit of both. But what a performance there! Now, what kind of springboard do you think that will be as they take on an Auburn team that I thought they were really impressive in this game against Michigan State? I mean, they essentially took Michigan State right out of the game in the very early portion and really never let up. That they had them by the jugular the whole time.
Yeah, 2 teams very familiar with each other. Florida went into Auburn and won earlier in the year. 2 coaches very familiar. I believe Golden was on the staff with Bruce Pearl. So you have the familiarity factor. The thing that got me was the big for that could stretch the floor for Florida might cause an issue. The Huff that hit the 2 threes when he didn't really want to take them was forced to because they left him open, changed the momentum in that game by him knocking down those shots to get the lead down to 4, and then Clayton took over with the last 2. And the more fascinating part of that particular instance you bring up about Clayton dribbling out is Toppin is guarding him and then doesn't chase him out to the 3-point line. He points at everybody else who are guarding their 3-point guys, the line to make the decision to go. He sits in the paint. So to me, the way I looked at that game for Tech is you're up 10. The only way Florida's getting in this game back is by shooting the 3. And you're giving them these shots. Huff had open looks. He didn't want to take them, and he gets a look. So I thought it was a coaching mismatch with both guys' ineffectiveness, where I thought that Texas Tech should have really understood that if we could test the 3 and give them the 2 and go 8-6-4 instead of 7-4-1, you're making more possessions under 3 minutes. It's a 10-point game with 2:40 to go. There's no way Texas Tech should lose that game. But again, you hit 4 threes in a row. Florida's great efficiency. Great players step up at great times. I love Clayton and what he's done, and they get through. So sets up another great match with two familiar foes, and it should be fantastic.
All right. What do you feel about the 2.5 that you would have to lay if
I
you're back?
would I'm kind of in a lay mode just because I think the foul trouble will dictate, but I like a little bit more of the bigger players for Florida causing more havoc because of the way they can stretch the floor. Making Caldwell and the bigger guys come out, I think, is one of the issues I see there. The guards match up very well. Who's knocking down the shots wins. If I had to put my money where my mouth is, which I do often, I would say Florida.
Interesting start to the Major League Baseball season, and
Yes.
we're going to have some action between now and Saturday. So I would imagine
Right.
you're diving in on some baseball, maybe some
Mhm.
NBA, and even you with your passion for pucks, betting
Yeah.
NHL very effectively so far this year, Mike Jones.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, how much could you have made if you had bet that the Yankees would hit back-to-back-to-back home runs on consecutive pitches at the
Crazy.
top of the ball game? That was pretty
Mhm.
incredible, unprecedented in Major League Baseball history. Had 4 home
Right.
runs in the inning, 15 home runs now.
Yeah.
Didn't I see you as a young Mike Jones rolling into the park with what looked to be the first of the prototype torpedo bats?
Wow.
Where I think it was an aluminum variety, and
Yeah.
it was probably used in softball, where they essentially had an oar at the top of the bat, or maybe it even was configured like an oar. And I don't know, was nobody aware that this was going to be happening? Were they hidden in the casket of Casey Stengel? How is it that the rest of Major League Baseball is not using this very same model?
It was so interesting because it gets down to the talking on the. I'm listening, watching the game on Yes, and Paul O'Neill is talking with Michael Kay, and they bring up this bat and they're showing it. And then they said that they did an analysis of Volpe, the shortstop, how he breaks bats and hits bats on off the barrel on the logo. So they created a bat for him with a barrel is where he hits the ball. And
Yeah.
then the next pitch, he hits a 3-run homer. And I'm sitting here thinking, wow, this is interesting. So he pulls the ball out. He doesn't get his bat on it. Let's make the bat the way it should be at the point of where the player hits. How amazing is that? We're not trying to find the barrel. Let's let the barrel come to where the player makes contact. Very, very interesting. Listen to these guys talk about it. But yes, Austin Wells hits the first ever leadoff home run for a catcher in Major League Baseball history for opening day. Never happened before. Then the Yankees hit 3 home runs. Never happened before. Like all these never happened before. 9 home runs in a game. Only the
Yeah.
second team ever to do that. Wow. And then they back it up. I put out on Twitter, well, I'm betting the Yankees team total under. And then they put up a 12 spot the next day. I mean, incredible. So, yeah, it's just amazing start to baseball. And what I saw really quick is the Angels and White Sox don't look pretty good at all. The Cardinals were a down team. They look like they got it going. They're 3-0 to start. And my Oakland A's were very competitive in that series against Seattle, winning a couple games and staying close. So I think they're something to build on. And that's what I got out of the quick baseball that I saw. And the Dodgers, we could talk about this. I like this. You don't want to lay 240. So you can't list the pitchers anymore in most casinos you go to. So why don't we do this? Why don't we wait till the Dodgers get down 1 or 2-0 and bet them? So you got the Dodgers as a dog in the 5th inning against Schoolball, and you had them as a dog in both games as they took 2-run leads and a 1-run deficit and 2-run deficit into the games where you get a price. I don't know. Might be a different way of betting it right now, to go in. So the Dodgers make 3 comeback wins, and they're 2-1 tonight. Why don't you wait till they're down 1-0 and bet it at -110?
Well, you wait for your friend next to you to say, "Hey, you know what? It looks like I'm a cinch." As his team is up 17-3 in a basketball game, or 4-1 first inning of a baseball game, and you're thinking, now's the time to pull the trigger. Now's the time to fire, because as soon as that kiss of death alluded to the idea that he was home free, no matter what the margin of deficit is to have to overcome, no matter how impossible it seems, the odds are just going to be bigger, and you know it's going to happen. It always happens as a matter of routine. What odds could you have gotten on Rafael Devers of the Boston Red Sox being 0 for 16 with 12 strikeouts through 4 games? I'm sure there was no prop on that because it seemed inconceivable, but this was a guy that was screaming before the season started that Alex Bregman was not taking third base over because that's my spot, which may have been well-deserved. You thought, wow, why do they need a third baseman? Devers is just fine. And a guy that you're thinking is going to carry a pretty weighted stick, whether it's torpedo style or not. 0 for 16, 12 strikeouts. He had to be consoled after the game by some of his teammates. And that's a strange phenomenon. And now people are betting that Aaron Judge is going to go over 73 homers, which shouldn't that number have been just erased permanently from the record book? Never mind a fucking asterisk. Just put a line through it like they did in Let It Ride every time the tout came around and gave Richard Dreyfuss a horse. It just whoosh, the record shouldn't exist, I don't think. But that being said, I don't think the torpedo bat could create the same kind of controversy as the Balco Labs did. And maybe they're not, not even close to the same kind of advantages.
With Devers, you might want to take a urine test for the other way. What was he doing out there in Dallas? Did he make miss curfew a few nights and just have a good time? I don't know, but that's an amazing stat too. For the other way around. But yeah, the Judge thing, everybody's telling me that the balls are different balls on these live TV games. These nationally televised games. They want hitting now. Now they're making barrels of bats different. They're going to try something to keep baseball interesting. But like you said, comebacks come. You still got to put it in the hole. Bond still had to hit the home run to go. It doesn't matter if the pop-up gets extended. I always look back at Barry Bonds and say I've never seen a player with a better eye for the strike zone than him. He didn't hit ball. He got pitches to hit because he knew what a ball was off the corner. He never swung at bad pitches. I think that's what made him so great. Yeah. So, you got to – yeah, I agree with you. Maybe the things are a little too juicy, but yeah, it's
a guy goes from a skinny waif like outfielder to who's hitting tops 27, 28 home runs, and then all of a sudden he's hitting 73. That there's not a ball he touches that doesn't leave the park. It was amazing, and they were throwing him nothing. They were throwing him garbage. Right. All of those years, he's hacking at pitches over his head and hitting them out of the park. It was great. All right, a lot to look forward to. We'll be joined again by Mike Jones on Thursday. We'll zero in a little bit more on these Final Four games as we get closer to post time. Big Gunner podcast coming up on Tuesday. That's 10 o'clock with Mike Jones. So make sure you check that out on nofilter.net. And we'll see some developments in the NFL, including this proposed, I don't know how far-fetched it is, TJ Watt for the number 1 pick. Pittsburgh going to the Titans and a bunch of draft picks going along with it, a swap of number 1s. Pittsburgh with Mason Rudolph as the only quarterback on their roster right now goes ahead and grabs Cam Ward and hopes that he turns out to be the answer. That's been speculated upon, but you will have no doubt a lot of speculation about the NFL and your Giants on the Big Gunner podcast.
Yeah, still not out of the quarterback looking for rookies. I think we solved the pressing issue, so we can look at another type of player, best player available. But I still think we're going to be drafting a quarterback quite higher than people think.
All right, we'll look forward to that, Mike. Always a pleasure, my friend. Yep. We'll see you on Thursday. Thanks for being with us. All right, Mike Jones, ladies and gentlemen, as we took a little early perusal of the 2 games on tap on Saturday and the Final Four for the NCAA tournament. And we'll have, no doubt, we'll zero in on some baseball during the course of the week. Also, some of the NHL and NBA developments and many other things to speculate upon as we try to help be a guide in your efforts to bury your bookie.